And I found, I think it was an article by you, maybe. I found something. I found the term NPE, and it like, rainbows, unicorns, the world opened. It was like, I'm going to cry, like thinking about the relief that I felt when I found that word and was able to connect into a community of people that could hear me, that could understood me. I didn't have to suppress anymore.
Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I am your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for not parent expected or non-paternal event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. Welcome to episode 117. In next week's episode, I will have on Fred Firestein, and he has been on Eve Sturgis's podcast, Everything's Relative. So, if in preparation of next week's episode, you would like to listen to Fred's episode on Eve Sturgis's podcast, I think that would be very helpful because he will be giving an update, a bit of a part 2 on our podcast, NPE Stories. So if you haven't listened to Eve Sturgis's, please listen to her podcast. She has an NPE podcast all about DNA surprises, and it's called Everything's Relative. And she is a friend of mine. She is an NPE. She's amazing. And we recently found out a bit of a strange coincidence between the two of us. We've been friends for a couple years now. I had a new cousin reach out to me, and it turns out she has a close connection with Eve Sturgis. So here I have this new cousin, and she's been friends for decades with Eve. She knows the term NPE, which is kind of rare. Not very many people know what that is. She's been following NPE podcasts for some time now, and she said, "Wait, you're Lily Wood? Eve Sturgis is my friend, and you're my cousin." It was just the strangest coincidence. So I had to put that out there because I was like, oh, small world. And on this podcast, we listen to NPEs, donor-conceived individuals, and late discovery adoptees share their story of how they found out they had a non-paternal event or a misattributed parentage experience in their life. And that's what we're going to do right now, because today I'm going to be speaking with Marysol. Hi, Marysol. Are you there?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi. So nice to talk to you today.
Yeah, vice versa. I'm very excited and grateful and nervous.
And that's all completely normal. I am no professional. I get nervous myself, and this is hard to talk about, right? With the family dynamics and
it's a scary step for me doing this, but it is a necessary one for my healing. And I just cannot tell you how grateful I am for this community. To hear me, to be heard by people that understand is like groundbreaking. It has been just, this podcast has meant a lot to me. So for me to be on this side of it is like, whoa. I'm just really grateful. Yeah, a big deal.
Thank you. And thank you for waiting. I know the wait list is, like 40 some people long, and I only do one episode a week. So that takes months and months to get on. And so thank you for your patience. And I know that you and I spoke a couple days ago just about how much do we give away? How much are we anonymous? And that is completely up to you with, if you need to do any name changes or if you want to leave some stuff out, I understand. But this is your story. This is what happened to you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I've struggled with that question a little bit, and I'm going to go with my gut and just really tell my story in as authentic as I can and be as respectful to everyone involved as I can. I think there's a lot of healing in that for me, owning that. Even as scared as I am, to take that step, it also is like liberating. It's very
Yes.
liberating. And I'm so grateful for this platform to do it because it feels like such a like solid step, so thank you.
Let's go ahead and why don't you, whatever you're comfortable with your background, it's kind of helpful just to get an idea of who was in your family of origin and kind of take it from there about what happened. So why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah. So I was born in Germany. My parents were both in the Air Force, so they were stationed there. I was born in 1979. They were very young, 18 and 19, and they hadn't, as the story goes, as I know it, they were only had known each other for a short amount of time before they were pregnant with me. My dad, just really stepped up to the plate when that happened and was really, excited and wanted to marry my mom and raise a family, even though they were 18 and 19 when they were, they were little babies, and in a foreign country. And I'll throw it out there now just because it relates in the story so much later that my mom is white and my dad is Puerto Rican. They kind of had the cute biracial love story, and I was the product of that. My biracialness was a real big deal in that time, in terms of it wasn't as common, it was less accepted, but it was also kind of this new world, where it, I feel like I kind of broke the mold in a lot of that stuff, biracial issues and whatnot within our family, within my mom's family, within family in general. And it was a big part of my identity growing up. Anyways, so Germany, they were young and they had me. I was born in Germany. They got married very quickly. My mom went for her 6-week checkup with me and found out she was pregnant with my brother. And so me and my brother, he was born 11 months later. So we were 11 months apart from each other, very close. Like we looked like twins. People thought when we were little, So there my parents were young and like with 2 kids, by the ages of like early 20s. They got stationed in Austin, Texas. And that's where we were raised, was in Austin, Texas, from the time I was little on. That's all I know. My parents were loving in the ways that they provided for us. We had a roof over our head. We had toys at Christmas. But they were young, and there was a large kind of, I guess, I don't want to fight for love. Everybody wanted something from each other that they didn't have it to give. Kind of, I felt like a lot. There was a lot of a passive aggressiveness. My parents were really anxious to live their lives and not be tethered with kids. There was just a beautiful, shiny surface, and a lot of kind of discomfort on the inside. But they tried, and I very much, as a parent myself now, I very much see the ways that they did try and the things that they did do, and I greatly value it. But there was a lot of dysfunction. There was a lot of dysfunction. Me and my brother were very close and also, enemies, because there was like a fight for love all the time, so lots of fighting and lots of closeness too, because we were just always together. Growing up, me and my brother, of the 2 of us, I definitely was the one who looked like, according to everyone and myself, I was the one who looked like my father. I was the one who took after my father. He took off more after my mother, just in personality wise too. So it was always like I was daddy's girl, and We grew up in Texas, so I tanned very easily and I had dark eyebrows. And so it just it made this story work. Um, as we grew up, the cracks, I think, started to get more and more. So my mom was in art school my whole life growing up. Eventually graduated art school and started teaching art, and then really got into the computer, like animation world, just right at the beginning of it when it was really just starting, and kind of took off in a career in that whole world. My dad got out of the Air Force and then kind of went to work for Motorola as an engineer and did that for a lot of our life. He worked a lot during our lives to, I think keep from fighting with my mom. I think to keep money flowing, he just was working a lot. And as we got older, me and my brother, the cracks really showed with that. I left home early at 17 just because things were so rough in a lot of ways. I'll skip a lot of that part. And then my brother ended up getting arrested at 17. And it just kind of like deflated my parents' image of this like beautiful family,
Mm.
And so my dad at that point, a little bit after that, left my mom. And I think it's something that he had wanted to do for a long time, but, stuck in there for me and my brother. And it just devastated my mom. And she got very, very like not vindictive. That's not really the right word, but like just bitter and angry. And any person who was within earshot, she had to just lie. And that's my mom. She kind of makes up stuff a lot and exaggerates, and that's her personality. But it just got really worse with the divorce. I mean, she just made up so much stuff about him and really just drug him through the mud every which way. It was really hard. I wasn't living at home, but it was really hard to be a part of because she really wanted me to like take her side. And it was just not so to me. There was no sides to be taken, it was just a divorce and people don't always work. And anyways, so it was rough. She ended up moving away. It was really hard on all of us in a lot of different ways. And a lot of the hardness was how hard it was on her and how she was just so ragingly mad. And at that point, I had just kind of gotten annoyed with just so much with my mom. It was never easy with her and I. She was always very apathetic to me. I always felt like I was like she wanted something better a lot. It felt like, but it always felt so hypocritical. It was always rough, we tried, but we couldn't, I don't know, we couldn't always do it. Anyways, I got this random phone call when I was 20 years old, and it was my mom out of the blue. And she was like, I need to tell you something, I'm like, what in the world are you calling me about? And she was like, I don't know who your dad is. And it was so shocking and jarring. And I was just like out of left field, and I was just like, what? Like my dad was my rock. He was like my very solid person through my whole life, and so it was just shocking. And then she just kind of backpedaled. I started asking questions. She got really squirrely. She kind of backpedaled on a lot of what she was saying and made it sound like maybe it wasn't true. I couldn't tell. It was the weirdest phone call. And then I was like, does dad know? And she was like, no. And I was like, so I have to talk to him about like, what? I'm about to see him in a few hours. Like, or it was like the next day or something, it was just the strangest phone call at 20 years old. And I started to get frustrated because it was very weird. And I was like, Mom, this is what in the heck is happening? And as soon as I started to get mad, she hung up the phone and didn't talk to me again for a very long time, and wouldn't answer my calls, no explanations, nothing. And I guess she called my dad right afterwards and told him a very similar story. Um, and then my dad drove over to my house because couldn't get in touch with me. We still live near each other. So he drove over and was just like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, like not at all." I don't even know what's happening. I'm so confused. And we both kind of cried and agreed that more than likely she was just making it up because she was so angry with the divorce and she was so angry with me for not taking sides, and that she was trying to like, be mean and put a wedge between me and my dad. And because it was such a weird phone call and it didn't make a lot of sense, that thought made the most sense to me, was that she was lying to get mad, to get at my dad, to get at me.
Mm-hmm.
But it created like a brain leech in my head. Me and my dad had a really sweet moment around it. He was just like, Miha, just, put her out of your head. I'm always here, just a phone call away. Like, don't dwell on this, like she's just trying to hurt me, and I was like, okay, um, but it really, I called it a brain leech, I mean, you do something like that to your kid and it's not like that thought goes away, and it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
festers and it festered. And then, my mom never called me back for years. My mom never called me back.
Oh, no.
And so, couple years later, I'm 24 now. Haven't connected with my mom maybe one time in that whole time. And again, I don't even think it, I think maybe she hung up on me again. I think I'm pregnant with my son. It is an amazing miracle. The best thing ever happened to me. And at 3 months pregnant, my brother was killed in a tragic car accident. And that was a big game changer. I'm gonna try not to cry on that one. That was a big game changer. um, I wasn't in Austin at the time. I flew home. I flew to Austin. My mom met me. We had this very strange experience, and I'm going to talk about it because I think it's relative to some of the stuff that I'm dealing with now. She picked me up and brought me to the place where a lot of people were gathered. And she always introduces me as her, her Puerto Rican daughter, the Puerto Rican version of her. This is my Puerto Rican daughter. We hadn't talked in years. And the last time we did talk was her giving me a bullshit phone call about my dad. It just really, I was pregnant. My brother was, all these people were staring at me. And she was just immediately launched into this whole monologue about how awful my father was and how I turned out great. And it was devastating for me. And I ran out of the room. I found a cell phone and called my dad, of course, and was like, "I need you to come get me right now. Like, she has lost it, And he couldn't, but he sent his wife, who is an adoptee, and like I just feel like she's been really helpful to me through this process. And she came right away and picked me up and was like, she's Latina, and she was like, "Mija, like you need food. We're getting you on the couch. Like only thing we're doing is resting and focusing on the baby and healing these wounds and grieving your brother. Like none of this other shit, And they just took me home and put me on the couch and just took care of me, They just took care of me. And I am so grateful. And I didn't really talk to my mom again for a while. My brother's girlfriend, who was a wonderful lady, was in the car with my brother when it all happened, and made it out. And she's from Peru, and she was very fucked up, like, really messed up from the whole thing, clung to my mom. My mom started calling her daughter and just kind of discarded me, thank God I was pregnant, because my son, just like a miracle, he is just such a miracle. He is such an awesome baby. It's just such a sweet, loving soul. And when he was born, I just saw parenthood differently. I wanted my mom in my life. So, I sucked it up. I did the things that I knew would work with her, which is to just like apologize for shit that I didn't do. And like blah blah blah, barf barf, and then we can be friends again. Like that's how it feels to me.
Yes.
And I wanted that really bad when my son was born, and so I did that. And she tried to be fair to her, but it took me like being like like apologizing for shit that I didn't need to. And I also had to suck down any conversations that we were going to have about this dad thing. I had to really suppress that. And I felt like when you lose somebody like the way that I did with my brother, it puts life in perspective, how short it is and how it can be taken away from you in a second. And so I just was like, I just have to be the bigger person here, and I need my son to have a grandmother. I need my mom. And so I just did that, for a while. I suppressed any feelings that I had, any questions, and worked outwardly, you could say, on my life, like worked making my outward life altruistic and holistic, and worked on putting these outward pieces together, but inwards, I was a rage ball, and it would leak out on the people that I loved around me, because suppressing doesn't work. It's not a tactic that like is healthy for anyone, but I just didn't know another way. And so I did that for a while, but my son got bigger. And my questions, I finally, he was maybe 5 or 6. And I finally was like, I confronted my mom in a very loving way one day. It was the first time I had done anything like that in a long time. Just with all the love in my heart, Mom, I completely understand life is hard and we all make silly decisions based on our crazy emotions and, whatnot. But I love you, and you told me this thing that has been very confusing for me, and I need some answers. And she did the apathetic thing that she does, the aloof thing. She goes aloof, just listens to me like she's listening, but then like won't respond. And then eventually I just kind of sat there and I was like, so, and she was like, well, I'm not going to give you any answers today. And I was like, I had like impositioned her kind of, and I was like, this shit's really fucked up. Like this, I don't know what to do now, Fast forward a little bit later, I get pregnant with my amazing daughter. My kids are like 8.5 years apart. I think as you get farther along in parenting, at least this has been my experience, like I start to be like, no, hell no. Like the stuff you were saying that was like so hard, or like that, like blame me for or whatever. No, like it starts to become clear that like, no, that wasn't my fault, and just stuff like that,
Yeah.
And so it became more clear to me, and I got less patient with her in general, I feel like. But getting pregnant with my daughter was another, babies are like such a game changer, and they bring people together, and they're, they can bring people together. And so I did more of the humbling suppression, suppress all my feelings around my mom, around anything, and then just try to go with the flow, because I thought that's what I had to do, What happens is it like really greatly affects my self-worth, and you get like years and lots of years, like my adult life is going by now, and my self-worth is like really like chipped away at time and time and time and time again, and then you overcompensate. And like I said, the anger inside just gets not fun. It's not fun, I tried different therapists through the years. I had certain people say certain things that were very like helpful. One time I had a therapist say, broken people can't fix broken people. And that was a big one for me. Like just kind of like understanding why my mom doesn't do, like why she is the way she is, but mostly I would be frustrated with therapists, because I feel like I there was this whole part of the puzzle that was missing, huge part of the puzzle that was missing. So years are going by. I've got a really good friend. I don't talk to people about this very often because it's such a like weird little thing. But I've got a really dear friend that I was opening up to about it, and she was like flabbergasted and appalled, and was like, "What? Your mom did what? Like, who does that? Like, and." Like, no, you don't, like, you need to figure that out. And I was like, well, the only way I can figure it out is if I go ask my dad for a DNA test, which at the time is expensive and also just like a kick in, not going to do that to my dad. My dad is such a good dad. Like, there's no reason. It just seemed so hurtful to him, And we were still of the mindset that my mom was lying, And so she was like, okay, I get it. And maybe like a few months later, she came to me and was like, I just want to throw this out there, but this was in 2015 that they make these DNA tests for families, like these things where you can, we just did one as a family, and it showed us what our what our races were, nationality, where we're from, all that kind of stuff. And she was like, since your mom's German, or my mom's like German British, and your dad's Puerto Rican, it would show up if you had took this test. And she was like, I totally bought you one. And I was just like, oh my God. And so I did it, like I would never have even thought of it or known about it or like sought it out, or, it was such just a rando thing. And so I spanned the tube. She sent it in for me. She it was not, anyways, she was just so like, that is not right, in her mind. And then we got the results back, and she got them because she had like signed up for the whole thing for me and was like, hey, the results are back. She didn't open or anything. She was like, I'm going to send it to you and all that. And, open them up, and it's like, you're all white, but it was really hard to read the results in 2015. Like, they basically were like, if your father hasn't taken the test, this is the best we've got kind of deal. So I called them, and they were like, same deal. It was super vague, super hard to understand. But it was definitely the first, like, oh shit, maybe my mom wasn't lying moment for me. And it was a really big one, it was a really big one. And it still left me in this crazy state of limbo because it was completely inconclusive. And I wasn't going to go ask my dad to take the test because he's just such a good dad. It just felt really disrespectful to me, And I didn't know what to do with the results. So honestly, I just kind of like, I was just like, thank you to my friend. I think she felt kind of weird and bad. And I didn't really look at them again. I just put them away because it just didn't give me any answers. It just made it weirder, And a couple months later, I got the courage up to write my mom an email, and was like, hey, I took this DNA test thing, and it's saying that I'm not Puerto Rican, and like I've asked you about this in the past, and you've blown me off. I don't know what to say anymore. I've got 2 kids now at this point that this affects. Like, please, I love you. Talk to me, And I got my mom. So I got this email back, and my mom was like, fine, if this is how we're going to do it, this is how we're going to do it. Like, I was the one that was choosing this, Mm. And she says, I don't know who your father is. I was at a party in Germany. He was a German man. I was really drunk. I wouldn't say that I was raped, but I would definitely say that I was sexually assaulted, and I have no idea who he was. And I know he was German, and I have no idea how to find him. And then she kind of went into the second half of the email being like, I don't regret you and all this kind of other stuff. That was very sweet. But I mean, that was a huge, huge, huge blow to me, to find out through an email that I'm the child of a sexual assault of some German man at a party. Like, this is huge for me, and that I'll never find him, that I'll never know him. So I spent years of my life processing that story and dealing with that story and trying to like figure out how to deal with it. My mom did the disappearing act thing that she does where she didn't respond to me for a very long time. I emailed back and was like, Mom, like, hello. And she was like, oh, I didn't know you emailed. I'm just like, I am such a different mother. I am such a different mother. And so it's really hard for me to relate to her in
Right.
ways that she does things. Like it just floors me sometimes. So a few years go by and I'm processing this story, no help from my mom, and kind of made to feel shitty, honestly, a little bit, you know? I hadn't looked at 23andMe in a very long time, like a long time. So this is maybe 2019 or late 2019 now. I get some email that's like, you have a message. I had never gotten a message before. I had never paid attention to the emails before. I had never opened the app since that time, 4 or 5 years ago or whatever. And so, but this was like, you have a message. So I was like, huh. And if I would have known what I was getting into, I would not have picked that time to open that email because I was like about to go cook dinner for my kids. It's like dinner, homework, bath time. You know, I'm about to go into full mom mode. And I open this email and it's like, it just like takes me to this message portal. I feel like it's still a little blurry. And it's like, 50 or 49.9% DNA match. This is your father. I'm going to leave his name out. He happens to have the same name as my husband, which is really wild. But I was like, what? Wait, what? You know, and the floor dropped out. I had a panic attack. I am kind of embarrassed to say it, but I ran into the bathroom. I was like in our art room. And I just ran into the bathroom because it was like anybody was going to walk in and see me, you know, and I couldn't even stand. Like I like didn't know what to think, you know, and hyperventilating. And I don't know how long. I took some time in the bathroom to get my breathing together to be able to breathe. And I was like, I got to get my husband to do the kids tonight. You know, that was my next thought. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I just ran downstairs and he was like, you look like you've seen a ghost. Like he was like legit worried, you know? And I was like, I kind of did, you know? And I hadn't even like opened it or looked at it or anything. I was still just like processing that one sentence, you know? And I was like, I need you to do the kids. And he was like, what is it? And I was like, I can't even say it aloud. I just need you to look at the computer. And he looked at it and he was like, oh shit. He was like, yeah, I got you. He's like, I got you. Just go, like, lock yourself in the room, do what you need, you know? And it was days, you know, days of like a mix of reeling, going through my past, investigating this person, just this rabbit hole, you know, total rabbit hole of the bottom being ripped out, you know. And so I opened the message and it was a very simple, very, very simple message. And it was from him. And it had been sent like almost a year prior to that. And I just had never seen it. So poor guy had sent a message a year ago and just didn't hear from me. And it was said, very interesting, or something very like DNA, very interesting result or something like that. You know, this is my name. Feel free to research me or whatever, or reach out if you want to. Like that was it. It was really simple, kind, not like super sketchy. You know, I was just like, okay. And so I sent him a message. It was like, my like the bottom is fall out of my life. I need you to just give me a sec and like I will reach back out to you in due time, but I just need a minute, you know. And he said right back, you know, no worries. He said there's a book out there called The Inheritance. Is that the one, the Danny Shapiro book? I think that's the one. Yeah. He said there's a book called that. He said he had kind of read through it and it had helped him, you know, and he just wished me well in my journey. And so I said, okay. There was this solid, minuscule of solidity in that. So then, of course, I'm emailing and texting and calling my mom, and my mom blocks me everywhere, blocks me on social media, blocks my phone, blocks everything, like nothing. Like she had never
Wow.
blocked me before, she has like not answered me, but she's never blocked me. So I couldn't get through to her. My protectiveness is just like, I need some kind of answers before I start talking to this guy, this random person. And then it was like, I just got to jump in. So I started looking him up, and holy crap, he looks just like my son, like younger pictures, on Facebook. um it's just like there's no mystery anymore. There's no, like, I spent 20 years almost just in this giant vortex of mystery, and like being lied to, processing, like being a product of sexual assault, so many things. It was like there was no more, there was just no more of that, and now there was this whole unknown, that was really scary. um, and so I eventually reached out to him and was like, hey, let's arrange a phone call. And we talked, and it was great. It was really great. Um, he has been wonderful and difficult. Our relationship has not been straightforward in any means. Um, Jumping into somebody's life this late into it is hard for anyone. There's not going to be just like linear paths. It's weird. It is weird no matter which way you slice it. And for him, there's like, he doesn't have a spouse. I do have a half sister. I'll go into that in a minute, but he doesn't have a lot in his life. And so this is very exciting for him. And there's not a lot of downside other than that he was lied to, stuff like that, manipulated. Um, but for me, this is like losing my dad, losing my mom, like, because I know my mom will probably never talk to me again, like, um, it's just a lot. And also there's this new person. And so it's just taken me a minute to kind of assimilate all of it. But I feel really like solid about how I have shown up, because I'll never just leave somebody hanging, or like, no way, that's mean. um, but this has been a path for sure. Um, so we got to know each other a little bit via telephone. He kind of wanted and needed a lot more from me than I could give in the beginning, still kind of to this day, but he understands now where I'm at, versus in the beginning, I think it was a lot more painful for him. And there's just so many components of this for me. So I needed to talk to my dad at a certain point, because this new person wants to be in my life. I need more information. Did my dad know who he was back in the day? Were they friends? He doesn't remember my dad. And here's another kind of funny, or not funny, but interesting thing that goes in the mix that just definitely concretes some of the stuff about my mom. So around that time when I was 20, my mom found him on AOL. So she must have always known. And they dated. They were like boyfriend, girlfriend, not for very long, but for a little bit of time, before my mom and my dad met. Um, and she looked him up on AOL in the late 90s, I guess it would be early 2000s, and found him, and kind of like alluded that she was interested in like rekindling a romantic relationship with him, and like bought a plane ticket to go fly out to see him. And made it sound like to him that she wanted to kind of rekindle this forgotten romance that they had in Germany back in the day. And he was super stoked. He was very happy about that. And so she got there and it became very like she did the thing that she does, which is she gets really aloof, very weird. I could just see their personalities like clashing so hard. I cannot even imagine them talking, honestly. They have really different personalities. And my mom is really just like ruthless. If she doesn't like you, she just cuts you off, and there's that. So I know she couldn't have looked at him and not known because honestly, my son just looks like me. I look just like him. I know my mom had to have gone there because she wanted to know, like she wanted to see him and know. Yeah. And they spent like a couple days together, like 2 days together. And like, he was really angry because he felt led on and misled. And she was just being mean to him the whole time. And so he lost his temper on her and yelled at her and took her to the airport and dropped her off at the airport. So they didn't really have a romantic rendezvous or anything like that. But like I don't know what that was. That's also the time frame when my mom made that phone call to me when I was 20 years old. So
a question about her trip to Germany. Did she mention anything to him about you?
So here's the other thing. He's not German.
Oh, okay.
He's not German at all. My mom completely lied. That story that she told me in the email was 100% made up. 100%. It was a total lie. He's not German at all. He was in the Air Force. They were in the Air Force together. They were stationed in Germany together. They had a relationship. They dated. It wasn't for very long, but they dated. And she absolutely knew who she was. And he was not German. He doesn't speak German. He's from Ohio, like he's not that, and so, and with that trip, what it confirmed to me is, again, because I still haven't yet talked to my mom, is that she knew exactly what she was doing. You know what I mean? Like, she's known. How else would she, she's known the whole time. This has been something that her deep, dark secret that she has kept the whole time. And I know it's because I don't know anything. I'm assuming it's because, they were very young and my dad was like a really sweetheart to her, and my bio dad, he's got a large personality and I can see them clashing, and I could see her being like, I'm going to choose the guy who is a sweetheart to me. I can see her making that choice. And I have a lot of compassion, honestly, for my mom and the choices that she made when she was young. This world is not set up for women and mamas to be supported in the ways that they need to be and deserve to be, and mothers have to make really difficult decisions all the time, and I have a lot of compassion for her for that. Everything that she has done since I am an adult, I am like flabbergasted. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And it has been, well, then I'll keep going. There's even more. So yeah, bio dad and I start to build a relationship. I eventually just realized I need to talk to my dad to find out if he knew him, who knew what. Is this guy some scam artist? I don't know, and I needed to talk to somebody. That conversation it just ended up being one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my entire life. I put it off for months because every time I would kind of try to get the courage up to do it, I would chicken out. Finally, one day I just had it. I had it. Like, I was just like, I'm going to do it. I called my dad. I was like, are you home? I need to come over. It's not an emergency, but it's really important. I need to talk to you right now. And he was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, I'm home. Come, and of course come, so I came over, I was like shaking and crying, got there. And I hyperventilated again. I didn't know how to talk to him about this. How do you tell somebody this, and he is a good, solid dad who has been by my side my whole life. Like, we live right around, we live like 30 minutes from each other, I mean, how do you do this to somebody, and yet there was no other way forward for me, and I had to do it. And so I just did it. And like, it just really was hard. He was wonderful. Let me say that. He was wonderful and amazing. But it was hard for him, like heart wrenching, heartbreaking, Thank God thank God my stepmom was there, because she's an adoptee, and she just was able to really be this great kind of mediator, holding the space and kind of understanding, my dad was so great to me, said all the wonderful, wonderful things about, I don't care, you're my daughter, all these types of things. He did not know him. He had nothing. He was like, I'll look through pictures and stuff and see if I can find something. He was like, but I never knew that guy. I never knew anything about him. And, I said, he wants to, pursue a relationship with me. I don't know what to think about it, Dad. And my dad, that was the most painful part for him, was that, and he was like, look, Mija, I will never tell you what to do. He knows me. He knows how strong-willed I am. And, I'll never tell you what to do. But I don't want to know anything about him. I can't. He's like, I'm too old. It's too painful. I'm not going to tell you not to pursue a relationship. Please don't tell me anything, and I so much respect for that. I don't feel bothered by that. I feel like I really understand, and I'm grateful he put down a like realistic boundary for him, one that, but it also puts me in a funny position, because, inside me, I'd like to get to know this person that I'm biologically related to. And I, on the other hand, would never do anything to like hurt my dad, because like I love him, and like really, it's just like we're each other's like biggest supporters, And so that's kind of put me in a rock and a hard place, but it's not his fault. It's nobody's. This is all just really confusing, and really difficult to deal with. He gave me this one really beautiful piece of advice that has kind of carried me through a lot of this. At the end of it, I was like, Dad, because he's very good at compartmentalizing things in a way that I just do not have in me. I am just like empathic, bleeding feelings everywhere, and he's very like in a very, not in a like stuffy or like unfeeling way, but he just has this very wonderful way of like compartmentalizing things. And so I was like, Dad, how do I not let the bitterness and anger that I feel towards my mom just like not eat me alive? Like how? Because I am like, it was at that point was just raging inside of me. It was like everything that I had suppressed for 20 years was like out and open and had nowhere to go, And he said, I watched your mom blame her mom her entire life for everything wrong, and it made her a very bitter person. And he said, you're one of the shiniest, brightest people I know. Please don't let her take that from you too. And that has just stuck with me and carried me through a lot, and helped me look at the bigger picture when I go down rabbit holes of like anger with my mom or resentment. So right after that, I was in a really bad accident. I crushed my arm. I was in a horse accident, and I crushed my arm and had to have it all rebuilt. It's all metal. Really, really, really difficult trauma, like physical trauma to get over.
Oh.
I guess I should say, what it did for me, though, was it gave me a pathway. I was just floundering, like raw nerves, just floundering. And I kept trying to fix outward stuff, no idea how to fix the inward stuff. And this trauma sat me in a bed for a very long time, and I had nowhere to go but to feel the pain every which way. And there was no more escaping it, And that was the part I was missing, hadn't gone into the pain because you'd think it's never going to end, and the betrayals and the just all of it. At a certain point in the healing of my arm, you get out of bed and you have to relearn to use your arm, and you go to physical therapy and you power through a lot of different kind of pain and you relearn to use it. And in that process, it showed me that with a lot of work, my own work, I think I had been waiting for my mom to do right in order for this like magic healing to begin. And I didn't even know I was doing it. And so I realized the internal work that was required, and all the stuff that I had so much resentment and bitterness about having to do, because I was like, this is her mess. She left this giant shit pile in my life. Um, and I just didn't know. Anyways, I started really digging into therapy and it was like everything at once: physical therapy, mental therapy. I just dove into all of this stuff, and I think another big thing that I learned from that whole process was that I kept wanting things to go back to the way they were. I kept wanting this like fix, and I realized there will never be a fix. Like, I'm never going back to the way that it was. Like, my arm is always different, and I will, it'll always cause me pain, and, it will always have to use it sparingly. And, there's a whole new life that I have. I had to change my profession. I was an organic farmer for 20 years, and I've had to kind of reroute my life. And that's what the DNA, like, that's what being an NPE, like, that's the part I was missing. I feel like, oh, sorry, I was hitting the table. That's
okay.
the part of the NPE experience that I've been missing, that this is a life-changing, huge thing. At least for me, everybody's different, but that I needed to treat it as such. And as soon as I did, healing started happening. It was like I would find podcasts or I'd find things that would help me, And I started navigating the relationship with my bio dad, even though it was terrifying. And I knew that I was going to hurt my dad. In my heart, I wanted that. And so I started kind of diving into that territory. And he had a massive amount of abuse in his life growing up. And, is doing amazing as a result of it right now, but definitely has some anger issues. That he definitely has some different issues, that he's done a lot of work on. He's had substance abuse issues, just all kinds of things through his life. And he has crawled through them, goes to therapy, still goes to therapy. He is very different in that he faces his issues. And, I've just watched my mom literally run as fast and as far as she can and as often as she can. And so to have somebody tackle things and then my dad is just so smooth. He just has this way of compartmentalizing things. Like, he knows his boundaries and he sticks within his limits, and like, I'm just not built like that. Meeting my bio dad, knowing my bio dad has helped me understand myself better a little bit, these ways. My bio dad is really smart, like genius level smart. But that can be difficult, in this world. It can be hard.
Yeah.
We were raised in different ways. And, I'm a, feminist, hippie, liberal lady. And so when he says things that grate me, at this point in my life, I'm my 42-year-old lady, I speak up for myself, and so we've hit some bobbles, where he's had some things that have rubbed me the wrong way. But we've made it through. So I have a half sister who is a couple years younger than me. But it's a confusing situation. We've come a long way with it. My bio sister, or my bio or half sister, her mom, she was also born in Germany. Her mom was also in the Air Force. And her mom told my bio dad about her, and he denied it and like just didn't want to deal with it and like really rejected her. And so for 14 years, he didn't even know. I mean, I think he just put it out of his mind, in all honesty. And 14 years later, my sister's mom reaches out to him and says, "Hey, this little girl really wants to know who you are." And so at that point, he talked to her, and then they met, and they look a lot alike. And so he just, okay, he took on dad role at that point. What he thinks is dad role. My sister, her mom committed suicide not that long ago. All kinds of hard things have been dealt to her, being rejected by her father, and so here I come along. They've built a relationship through this. But here I come along, and he's so happy about me, and he's so excited about me, and he rejected her, and they've built relationships since then. But I could feel her hurt,
Yeah.
and so I just said, F it, like, fuck it. I am too old to not speak my mind. So I sent them both an email. I wasn't going to say stuff about her that he didn't hear. I just sent an email to them both. And I said, you know what? I think you were a crappy dad to her. You didn't pay child support, not a dime. You rejected her, on and on and on of the stuff. And here we are, and you're glamorizing me. And I am great because I had a really great dad. And this is a really intense email, and I know it is. But like I said, this is a really crazy situation, and I was not about to hurt my sister, and so somebody needed to say it, and I did. And so I sent the email to them both. I also was like, I see all the work you've done in your life. If I could have a similar conversation with your parents to my bio dad, I would. Like, they abandoned you in a lot of ways, and I would hold them accountable. Like, I tried to make it as well rounded as possible. Like, I get you, and like, don't put me in front of her. Please do not do that. Like, that puts us all in a really uncomfortable position. And he got pretty pissed, understandably. And I knew what I was doing. Like, I knew I took that gamble, but for me, it was worth it because nobody had ever stood up for my sister like that in her entire life. And she has had a lot of difficulties. And that girl is thriving now. That was like a year and a half ago or something. I sent that email, and she's in college. She's like got an apartment, got a cute dog. Like, she is kicking butt. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad I did it. It was rough for me and the bio dad for about 4 or 5 months, because he was pretty pissed, but somebody needed to do it. She needed somebody to just stand up for her, and call like it was. Well, eventually like during that 4 or 5 month period where he was really pissed at me, I like looked at my mom's Facebook page through like somebody else. Like, I was on my friend's computer, and I was like, because I can't look at my mom because she blocked me. I was so like, I'm gonna look at my mom and see what she's doing besides talking to me, And I don't do that very often because it generally crushes me, but I just had a hair at my booty, and I did it. And this is the thing that, like, honestly, it catapulted the biggest healing. But in when I looked and saw what she was doing, it was such a kick in the face. So she makes video games for a living, and she started this whole game, and and she's like the head of it, like runs it. It's like this huge thing. It's called Evolved Play, and the whole point of the game is to bring families together and to help facilitate social and emotional learning within families. It's like a family multiplayer.
Oh my God.
I shit you not. Like, I shit you not. I lost it. I was like,
yes.
Are you kidding me? I was raging. I was like, this lady who like is the last person on the planet who needs to be telling anybody about being socially or like family. So I couldn't even, and it raged me. And I was like, And that is when I found the word NPE. And because I would just got on Google and I was like, there's got to be something for somebody like me. There's got to be something, And I found, I think it was an article by you, maybe. I found something. I found the term NPE, and it like, rainbows, unicorns, the world opened. It was like, I'm going to cry, like thinking about the relief that I felt when I found that word and was able to connect into a community of people that could hear me, that could understood me. I didn't have to suppress anymore. I could find the right therapist. So I immediately found a NPE therapist that we do Zoom therapy. Well, I'm actually finding a new therapist, and I'll get into that right now. It's all good. But like somebody where for all these different therapists I've done in the past, I was like, this is it. It's the NPE thing. We got to start here. Like, this is the point of starting. Everything else shoots out from this, And so I found somebody that specialized in that. It was like, as soon as I found that, I found the podcast. Like, as soon as I found that word, it was like, this connections, dominoes. I was able to start finding healing. So as much as I'm like pissed at my mom and just think she's a horrible, ridiculous lady in a lot of ways, I'm trying to get past that. But it seeing that like was the push off the cliff for me to like really dive into finding help and like Googling until I found it, And so since then, I found, like I said, a great therapist. I flew to meet my bio dad, which was scary. I took my son with me. My son is 17. This has very much been just as much as affected him, just as much me. Because he lost his grandma, like we've been through this together in a lot of ways. And I'm just really open with my kids. The little one I just didn't talk to her about it because she was little. Like, she didn't even know babies were made. We just didn't, in the beginning, it was just like it would be not nice of me to overshare. But when I went to go meet my bio dad, she was like, you're going somewhere with Bubba without me. Like, she was offended, And so that's when I opened up to her as best as I can. And she didn't even really flinch. It's always just there's going to be two dad figures in my life for her. Like, that's just going to be her life growing up. With my son, it's different because he's got the betrayal of losing my mom. My daughter doesn't even know my mom, but there was a period of time that my mom was in my son's life, I went to go meet my bio dad and my bio sister. We just spent a couple days. I took my son with me. My son's big and strong, and I don't know these people. It just felt like he wanted to go. It just felt like the right thing to do. I couldn't take my husband because he needed to stay and take care of things here. And it just felt like the right thing to do. And it absolutely was the right thing to do. Them meeting each other was a really big deal. It wasn't, like I said, like any of this, it wasn't linear. It wasn't straightforward. We hit some bobbles in there. But we make it through. That's what I appreciate about him, is that he doesn't just like write you off. It's like we hit a bobble and then we take some space and then we reconnect and figure it out, And then we were just there a couple nights, and then, we would hang out, and then me and my son would go to the hotel and we would like process it all, like, what did you think about that? What did you think about that? And it was just like, I was so glad he was there with me, and he was so glad he was there with me, like I didn't leave him out of any of this, because he's just too grown and too smart for any of that, and then we did it together. So I did that. And I haven't told my dad that. I don't know if I'm ever going to tell my dad that. When I came back from that trip, I had this huge slump of guilt. It was overwhelming. And it took me a minute to get out of that. I had a lot of guilt. I felt like I had completely betrayed my father, and it made it all real. And it was just really difficult for a minute. Through therapy, I have worked a lot of that out, The biggest part that I'm working with right now, and is the most confusing, and I don't have my ground underneath me, I don't know how to deal with it, is the race part of it. Because I went from being biracial, to a huge part of my identity, to being white. And I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to deal with that in society. Um, I feel like I talked to my dad a little bit about it that time we were talking, and he's just like, Mija, you're Boricua, like you are Boricua por vida. Like there's nothing you can do about that, and I get it, and I appreciate his perspective, and I get that, and also like that's not true, and I don't know what to do about that, and so my therapist that I've been working with doing NPE stuff, we both agreed race is not her specialty, and that the next phase for me is to find a therapist that can help me with that. And so I'm in the process of kind of interviewing or just going through, and I just don't have tons of time, so I haven't been diligent about it, but finding somebody that can help me kind of dive into the race stuff, because it is really hard and really confusing and a lot to sort out, and I feel really alone. But I'm gonna get help and sort that out. But that's my story. That's my story. That's where I'm at.
Marysol, thank you so much for sharing your story today. When you were telling about the letter you wrote to both I guess that would be your bio dad and your new half sister, I thought that was wonderful and brave, and I was like, can you be my sister? She's so lucky to have you. I loved your honesty. You did the right thing. Thank you for talking about all of this. There's a lot of NPEs and other people with misattributed parentage events in their life that I know are dealing with the racial identity. Thank you for speaking to that. And I know you are very busy. I'm not going to give out your contact information, but if anyone ever wants to send me a note, I will forward that to you if you want to read that. Just any sort of feedback or compliment, really.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for sharing your story today. I really appreciate it.
I thank you. I can't thank all of you enough. Every one of you that has shared your story, you have all touched me and healed me. So I'm grateful.
These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.